Hey, fourth grade, it's Mr. Rain. I got a new computer, so now I can record myself while I do the slides and you can hear my voice. So this week we'll be working on supporting inferences about literary texts. I'm excited to get started with you. Okay, go ahead and read Lesson 12's learning target with me. Use story details and examples to explain what the story says and to support inferences you make. Remember, we learned about inferences a lot this year. An inference is when you take your background knowledge and the text evidence to make an inference. Let's read the next section together. An inference is a reasonable guess you've figured out based on what you already know and the details of what you see or read. When you make an inference, be sure you can support it with evidence or details and examples given in the text. Readers make inferences to figure out what a story does not say directly. Evidence from a text can often help you understand something that an author hints at but does not state directly. Look at the cartoon below. What inferences can you make about the girl? Which details help you figure out her feelings? So I'm going to look at each picture. I'm going to say what I see in the text and what I know already from my background information. So in the first picture, it's at 1 p.m. and it says, "I'm so excited to finally see this movie. Everyone says it's so good." So that's what I see in the text, that she says she's excited to see the movie. Now what I know is that I know when I go to a movie that I face forward, my eyes are open, I'm excited to watch the movie. So my inference can be that she's eager to see the movie. Now let's look at the second picture. It's at 1:45 p.m. and she's staring at her watch and her mouth's open. So what I see in the picture is that she's yawning at her watch. What I know is that I usually yawn when I'm bored or tired. Now the inference I can make is that the movie isn't interesting. It doesn't say it in the text, but I can infer that from what I see in the text and what I already know. Now let's look at that final picture. I see that she's sleeping, her popcorn's knocked over, and there's Z's. So in the picture, I can see she's sleeping. Now, what I know is that if I'm sleeping in a movie, that must mean that it's boring or that I don't like it. So my inference on the girl can be that she is bored and doesn't like the movie. Now let's see how we can put this all into a chart on the next page. Let's start at the top section. What have you learned about using details to make inferences? Consider what happens in the cartoon. How does the girl eventually feel about the movie? Use what you figured out about the girl to complete the inference chart below. Make inferences based on the details in the cartoon and what you already know. So you'll see there are 3 rows that I want you to fill out for the first, second, and third picture. Go ahead and pause this movie and fill out the chart just like I discussed on the previous slide. Click play when you're ready to resume. Here are the answers for our first model section together with the 3 pictures. Remember, when you read a story, you can combine what you know with details in the text to make inferences. Making inferences will help you understand things about the characters, setting, and events that the author does not explain directly. Now we'll be reading a mystery called The Penny Thief by Charlotte Fairchild. Please follow along with me. My family got a parakeet on the very day that we moved into our new apartment. On our first night in the new place, we tried to name our new pet. I wanted to call it Tweety, but no one else liked that name. We couldn't find a name that everyone agreed on, so we agreed to think about it for a while. My father always emptied his pocket change into a large glass bowl in the hallway. When we wanted money for this or that, he would count it out for us from the bowl. The very next night, as he tossed his change into the bowl, he mumbled, "Funny, I'm sure there were mostly pennies on top." None of us knew where the pennies had gone. Every day that week, my father complained that someone was taking pennies from his bowl. We all pleaded ignorance. And every day that week, we discussed a new name for our pet. At the end of the week, we took everything out from the birdcage to clean it. In every corner of the cage was a pile of pennies. That's when we learned that my mother had let the bird out to fly around every morning. "Penny thief!" my father cried, and our pet was named on the spot. Let's read our Explore question to figure out what we are going to fill out in the chart. What details in the mystery help you make inferences about the story events in The Penny Thief? They want us to complete the inference chart below. It's going to help us understand the inference that the main character made. So now you have three columns: what the text says, which is our evidence, what I know, which is my experience, and then my inference. So you'll see on the first one that the inference is filled out for us already. The family wants to find out what is happening. Now we got to go back into the text to figure out what the text says and what we already know to get that inference. The chart gives me the first inference, that the family wants to find out what is happening. So I have to read closely to find the text evidence that supports it. We're working backwards. So I find my first piece of evidence at the end of paragraph 2. The narrator says, "None of us knew where the pennies had gone." I'm going to go ahead and put that in the what the text says box because that lets me know that they want to find out what's happening. Now, I'll need to think about what I know from personal experience. I know that when something mysterious happens, I'm not happy with it until I figure out what's going on. And most people that I know are also like that. I'm going to write down that people like to figure out mysteries and puzzling events in the what I know box. Now, when I put those two things together, I can see that they support the inference that the family wants to find out what is happening. So now here are the answers we just discussed on the previous slide. Now the next part, we don't have the inference that's filled out. What we have filled out is the experience. So that's what the person's background knowledge was. So that says some birds are attracted to shiny objects. So what does the text say that proves that? And then what can your inference be? So let's go back to the text. So the experience, or the what I know, is that some birds are attracted to shiny things. So I need to find the text evidence that shows that. Now I'm looking at paragraph 4. It says, "In every corner of the cage was a pile of pennies." Pennies are shiny. So what inference can you make if the bird kept them in a pile of his cage, and birds like shiny things? Well, I know that my inference would be that the bird saw the pennies and took it to the cage. Here are our final answers for the penny thief text. We took our evidence, what we know from our experience, and made an inference that wasn't necessarily said in the text, but what we can infer based on those two things. Okay, that's all I have for you this week. Remember, I'll see you on our Zoom call. And if you have any questions or you want to just talk about the packet, you can feel free to call me. Your parents have my numbers. Also, need to shout out the people who did last week's check-in. So those people are Damien, Mackenzie, Kalana, Anaya, Deontarius, Carmen, Gabriel, Sanaya, Deerica. Thanks so much, guys, for participating, and I hope to see more next week. Love and miss you. Bye-bye.